Well, hello, everybody. Good morning. This is Jeremiah, and we have a very, very special webinar for you today. And not only special, this is on track to be our highest attended webinar ever. And I think that's pretty obvious why. Plant schedules, very much our signature feature. Um, and this has been a lot in the creation. As you can imagine, we maintain a wish list, and of course, obviously, there's been all kinds of ideas for what people want out of the plant schedule, and it reached a point where there was really no way to really address them without just completely rewriting the plant schedule function, and then that itself delayed the project even further. In fact, this what you're about to see, this project started 2 years ago. The original anticipated release date for this was 2021. Sorry to say, but the original framework was worked on that summer, and it was just dragging, and so it got canceled for 2021. And then in 2022, we pivoted and decided to do the irrigation schedule because that was going to be easier. And then finally, this year, pivoting back around after all of that experience, ended up being we're right at now, it's about 7,200 lines of code. And the overarching emphasis, at least from my end on engineering it, was on maintainability. If you ever see those videos on the internet of a mechanic, showing like how you have to remove the entire suspension just to get to the drain plug on the oil pan, you ever see those? And they're like, who would design this, right? And so to take something as complex as the plant schedule and as large, that many thousands of lines of code, and make it so that it's extremely easy to maintain and to build off of. And so it just, that in itself drags out the development even further, because it's not about getting it done. It's about and not even about getting it done right. It's approaching getting it done perfectly. And so it's been one heck of a project. And I do hope you'll enjoy this. I got just a couple quick housekeeping items here before we really get going. I do want to remind you all, this is being recorded, of course, and it will be up on the website later today. And you are, though, with us live for this event. And I want to point out there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I would recommend you click it right now, because that's going to make it a little bit easier for you to type in some questions. I'm sure you're going to have some input during this, but also note that when you have that up, you can see the answers that we type to other people's questions. So it makes a fun little companion while you're on this ride with us. But that being said, I know you're excited. I'm excited. This has just been so much work over the past months. So really, I am very eager to see some reactions of what we've been able to pull off. So that being said, hey Paul, let's take this away.
All right. Thanks for the intro, Jer. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And as you already know, today we are talking about land effects plant schedules. If you've ever had to create a plant schedule by hand or in AutoCAD or Excel, you know what a time suck this process can be. But for about 20 years, land effects has had the ability to generate automated plant schedules. Back when I was in college, I remember that I always left the plant schedule, or as I called it, the plant legend, until the last step. And this meant that I was writing it out on trace paper or Mylar or paper at about an hour before it was due, after having been up all night rendering the landscape plan. Or when I learned AutoCAD, but was unaware of tables, I was drawing table cells with the line tool and using mtext or text tools to enter plant information one plant at a time. Either way, it always took way longer than expected and was prone to miscounts and other errors. And then when I was a designer for a design build company, I used other software that was CAD-based, and it placed schedules, but it relied on me accurately labeling plants. And also I was stuck with one style of plant schedule with very little customizability, and it just contained the basic information like plant name and quantity. Fast forward to 2015 and my first time running a schedule in LandFX, and I was absolutely floored by how easy and fast it was to generate an accurate schedule. And nowadays, I get to relive that joy and excitement just about every time I show someone who isn't familiar with LandFX how fast creating a schedule can be. And when I was thinking about this earlier, it actually reminded me that our Sean Rittenhouse here was able to take a couple of photographs of some folks at the last year's ASLA Expo as I was showing them placing plant schedules. And so we have some genuine reactions to that. And I just thought it'd be kind of fun to show that reaction. So it's really quite amazing being able to do all that work very, very quickly. But what are we going over today? So I figured with the presentation, I would start back at the basics and just very quickly talk about what a plant schedule is, and then show the progression of LandFX plant schedules throughout the years. And then we'll jump into the new features that we've been working on. And I'll wrap up the slideshow by unveiling the brand new schedule that we have not had before. Then we'll jump into CAD, and I'm going to try to go through all of the different options for all the new schedules and show you what they do. And then hopefully we'll still have plenty of time for questions. So first off, plant schedules, sometimes called plant lists or plant legends. It's simply just a list of plants in a planting plan, commonly used by the planter to identify plants in the plan. Could also be used for cost estimations or the bidding process. Either way, it's integral to the field of landscape architecture. Common elements included in a schedule are the symbol of the plant or a code, the name of the plant, quantities in the plan, size of plants, planting or installation notes, and there could be a lot more information as well. So when I was preparing for this presentation, I kept thinking about how I would create a plant schedule without LandFX. It's something that I haven't done in a really long time. So just as a little test for myself, I started putting together an AutoCAD table for a plant schedule, trying just to use AutoCAD tools. And I set a timer. And after about 13 minutes, I realized I was wasting time, and I stopped after entering just the tree information. But it gave me a good idea of the process, or at least one process for how you can get this done without the LandFX tools. So in this little demo here, I just took a screenshot of it. I created an AutoCAD table and entered in the cell information just by hand. Quantities were calculated using the bcount command, and all the other information just came from notes that I had available. And yeah, after 13 minutes, I stopped. I felt like that was a good sample of how long it would potentially take. And I was kind of able to extrapolate, how much longer it would take to finish the actual schedule. One thing to note about this is that it still needs formatting. The text style in there is whatever was set to current at the time of creation. It's not yet to scale. It's not finished. And if I had made any changes to my planting plan, I would have to go in and manually update this. This takes time. And even with AutoCAD tools like bcount, you can still make mistakes. So when working with LandFX, the schedule is just a few clicks away. It takes almost no time at all. This one here was using the same planting plan as the one I generated with AutoCAD, and it took about 5 seconds to generate. Now that 5 seconds includes the time that my hand left my watch when I set the timer to the mouse, the 3 clicks it took to place the schedule, and then my hand moving back from the mouse to my watch to stop the timer. So it probably took less time than that. The benefits to this, though, besides the incredible time saving you get from generating the schedule, I can quickly reformat the style. With schedule options, I can change it very quickly. I can add or omit information with a few clicks. If I do make changes to my planting plan, which, as we know, changes are made very commonly, and to update that, all you got to do is regenerate the schedule, which is also pretty instantaneous, and it's accurate. Super important that the schedule quantities and the information within it is going to align perfectly with what you want it to show. So this slide isn't necessary, but is there a noticeable difference? And yeah, even if I was moving very fast and creating a very simple schedule in AutoCAD, it would have taken me at least 20 minutes. Now I know there's other methods to do this. Some people use Excel and paste the cells into AutoCAD from Excel, or you can do a lot of front end work where you create blocks with attributes that will allow CAD to kind of automatically add up certain items. But either way, it's a lot of work and time versus what comes with Land Effects out of the box, which is about a 5-second schedule, no matter how complex your planting plan is. So let's look at just a brief history of schedules and Land Effects. And so I was able to obtain these screenshots of old plant option dialog boxes. And just to see how far it's come. So this is version 1, which was released in 2004. It seems to cover everything you'd need for a plant schedule. But obviously, the more you use a tool, things will come up that you realize could add to the quality of life and the experience of using the tool. So a year later, we get schedule options version 2, taking away some of those drop-down menus, adding an option for changing your schedule into uppercase in case your plant information is in mixed case or lowercase writing. But still has pretty much anything you need for a pretty simple schedule. Version 3 includes cost now, and you can move the names into separate columns. And as the years went on, more options were added, but also the design was simplified. JR said something funny a little bit earlier about this, and he said that the schedule options dialog box was looking too much like a complicated spacecraft console, and his goal was to make it simpler and more intuitive, which leads us to the window that we're probably all familiar with, unless you haven't used schedules yet. And so the design has been simplified, it's cleaner, and there's still a lot going on. So this came out probably about 10 years ago. And so not much has changed. And Jared already touched on this. And it's mostly because many of the requested changes required that the code behind the schedules needed to be rewritten. So instead of remodeling the kitchen, we needed to tear the whole house down and rebuild it, which leads us to the new schedule. So we have been taking note of all of your feedback over the years, and we've been busy updating the plant schedule system, or more accurately, giving it a comprehensive overhaul. Some new features that I hope you're excited about. First off, we have a cleaner, more intuitive dialog box. Everybody loves dialog boxes, right? Here's a really neat new feature. You now have the ability to reorder columns. So if you click on this column order button, which I will show in a little bit, it'll bring you to this box where you can select columns here and reorder them using the little arrows. And you get a nice little preview of what those columns will look like in their order. We've also added a new text style for schedule headers. So schedule headers being this text here. Previously, it just took on the schedule text style. And many of you wanted a separate text style for that, whether you wanted to make the text bold or a different font or what have you. So we've added that ability. You can now include the canopy size for trees. So before, if you wanted to do that, you had to set up a custom user field. And we got a lot of requests for including the canopy, which basically shows the tree size at its mature width in its own column. We've also added the option to include or not include the schedule title. So this can be useful if you're running different schedules by groups or maybe different work areas. You can run a schedule with the title up top and then run smaller schedules and place it right under it, and that title won't be there for those other schedules. The plant group is now on a separate line from the header. So before, the tree group would have basically sat on top of where code should have been. And now trees or shrubs or your plant groups has been moved up. And so you now have a clearer schedule here because of that. And here's a big one. So whether you're running a schedule within a table that shows the cells, or what used to be called the drawing option, where you place a schedule without these cells, no matter how you place your schedule, they always go in as AutoCAD tables, which allows you to be able to more easily adjust the widths of columns and the contents within, and also allows for better alignments of symbols. We've also added the option for subtotals for cost and quantities for each plant subgroup or group. So now the cost of all your shrubs is subtotal down here, in addition to the total, which would be at the bottom. Our previous plant schedules options had an option for space between plants, but it was basically a checkbox. And now you can adjust that space between plants between 1 and 5 spaces. And we've introduced an assortment of smaller improvements and fixes to items like spacing, weird issues that came up with specific combinations of schedule options that caused things like header overlap or overlap of data or weird text wrapping issues. All of those have been addressed. If you ran a schedule and it was too tall, that could have been a spacing issue. So we've addressed all of those based on all of your feedback, and schedules generate much faster than before. And we've introduced a new thing. Plant photos can now be included in the plant schedule. I know this is a very much wanted item, and we finally have the ability to do so. So here's a schedule with plant photos included. In addition to the regular plant schedule, we've updated the concept plant schedule, which, as you can see here, has a cleaner, more compact dialog box. The spacing of the schedule items in the actual schedule is tighter, so a little more compact. But I think most importantly, there's no longer a discrepancy between the concept plant label quantities and the quantities in the schedule. This was due to a rounding issue when the system calculated areas in the label versus how it calculated the total quantities of plants in all the areas that was displayed in the schedule. So now if you add up all of your plant totals in concept areas and compare it with your schedule, they should match perfectly. And we've also added a new type of schedule. Let me be the first to introduce you to the bloom schedule. So we now have a bloom schedule, which will show your plants. It'll show what color their bloom is, and also what time of year you can expect that bloom to occur. So now that I've whetted your appetites, let's go into CAD and show this stuff off. All right, before we jump into schedules, I just wanted to show what I've done so far. So I've created a project. I've set my plot scale. In my project, I've added plants into my plant manager. And if I look at placed here, each plant has been edited and data given to it. So I've given them remarks, sizes, 2D symbols, and I've also added photos. So if you're new to plant photos and you want to create that plant or that photo schedule, you're going to want to head into your plant info dialog box, click that photo button, and then click on this thumbnail here, and it'll bring up the view photos window where you can view a photo if it's already assigned, or you can browse your computer to assign a new photo, or you can browse the internet for photos to tie to the plants. And if you get this up here where it says photos from land effects, those are photos actually taken by our very own Molly Vanderlip, who has gone around and created a nice large compilation of photos and tied them to plants. So if you see the star, or if you see the photos from land effects, basically those are tested and verified that they will work in CAD, because not all internet images are the same, and sometimes they don't play nice with CAD. So ideally, you'd want to be choosing one of these or ones with a star. So I've done that for all the plants. I've also added some areas, and I've done the same thing where I've assigned hatches. And I've also added in some concept plants. Now, the only one that's actually placed right now is a ground cover mix. The other ones are all conceptual, and I'll place a few of those for when we actually show the concept plant schedule. And I've placed a couple of work areas in here. Okay, and I think that's all I've done to prep for this, other than place a few plants in this kind of simple little planting plan. So let's run a schedule. I'm just opening up the new plant schedule. By the way, this is not officially released yet, and so it's in kind of a beta mode. You can access it, and I will show you how you can access it at the end of the presentation. But the old schedule style is still there. So if you're accessing the plant schedules through the dropdowns in the ribbon or in the plant manager, you're going to be pulling up the old schedule system. So here's what the new one looks like. And I'm just going to kind of run through each one of these options and talk about it and show what a lot of them look like. So starting at the upper left-hand corner, we have your destination. So if you want to place a schedule in CAD, you're going to want to have this table option selected. The grid lines non-plot used to be called drawing before. And since everything's a table now, you can either choose to have the grid line show by unchecking this. And we'll see what that looks like. Just like that. Or if we choose the option for grid lines non-plot, it looks like this. Moving on, the spreadsheet option basically exports a CSV file, which is something that can be opened up in your spreadsheet software, whether that's Excel or whatever else it is you use. And when you do that, you click OK. If you're noticing that I'm getting a pick box when I should be placing a schedule, it's because I have work areas in my drawing, and it wants me to either select a work area or all work areas or use the entire drawing. So I'm just pressing enter to count everything that's in the drawing. So I'm just going to save over one I've already created. And I can show you what that looks like. Now I don't have Excel. I have numbers, but here is that schedule exported out to your spreadsheet. Comes in looking really nice. Now I did choose to include symbols in this, so it is showing the name of the block that's used as a symbol, as you can't export blocks and have them show up as symbols in Excel, or the name of the hatch for those hatch areas. All right, moving down. Whenever you press schedule and there's a schedule in the drawing, the system will know this and will ask you if you want to regenerate the schedule. So if you click yes, you can then click on one of the schedules, or if there's only one schedule available, it'll just update the one that's in there, which is great for when you have revisions and you've made changes to your planting plan, added plants, taken plants away, changed the data within the plant, etc. You just go ahead and click that, and the system will update it so that it's accurate. Moving down in destination, if you are subscribed to Landscape Hub and you use their interface, you can choose this option. And eventually, when we have other partners that do similar items, that list will be here. And you click OK, and it's actually going to send that over to your Landscape Hub so you can open that up and view your plant list there. But let's stay within CAD. Moving down, we have entire palettes. So this basically ignores the plants that are in your drawing and instead will give you a comprehensive list of everything that's in your plant manager. See what that looks like. Over here. So this is just everything that I have in my plant manager. Obviously, there's no quantities here because it's ignoring the plants that are in the drawing. Let's clean up our space a little bit and move on. So if I uncheck entire palette, it allows me to include Xrefs, as that's kind of superfluous if you're doing everything that's in the plant manager. But if you choose the option to include Xrefs, what the system will do is it'll look one level down into your Xrefs, and if it finds plants in your Xref, it'll include them in the schedule. So if you follow our recommendation for sheet setup and you attach your planting plan as an Xref into your sheet file, but you want to run schedules in that sheet file, you can do so by choosing this option. I'm not working with an Xref right now because I was trying to keep everything simple, but if I had Xrefs and I chose that, the system would look through it and count plants in that as well. So including concept plants, if you have concept plants in your drawing, you can click this and it'll actually include it into your main schedule. So I have that one ground cover mix placed. So if I check this, it should place that in there. Down here. And if you notice, I chose the option to include concept plants by group. So what it does is it actually separates this ground cover mix from the rest of the plants and displays what the mix is in the group with a little indicator here of what the concept group is. If I choose to do it by plant, it's going to not separate it by its group and will actually merge it with the plants that are in your regular plants schedule. So you see here, I have a single plant for this Diamondia ground cover, and I also have it included in my ground cover mix. When I run it by plant, it actually combines what's in the mix and what's in my just Diamondia areas, and it combines the quantities, as well as adding in the other plants from the group. So that's concept plants. Let's move over here before we go into plant groups. This title checkbox allows you to place the title on your schedule. So let's say I want to run a schedule for trees, and I want the title because it's going to be at the top. I can place that just like that. And say I want to add shrubs, but for whatever reason, I have different options for this. And I don't want the title because I want it to line up. Let's say for shrubs, I want remarks below name. So I can now click OK and place my shrub schedule. And there's no title, so I can easily just kind of match it up with the tree schedule. And everything falls under that one title. So that's what title does. Under title, we have the botanical and common display, or the name display. So as it sits, the botanical name and the common name will fall into one column. That's what this slash means. And that's what you see here. If I drop this down, I can switch the order. So common comes first, and botanical comes second. If I did that for a shrub schedule, it would look like this. Or I can separate the botanical and common name into two separate columns. That's what this straight line means. So if I want botanical in one column and common in another column, I just choose that option and place a schedule. And now we clearly have the botanical name in one column and the common name in another. And the remarks is below the name. That is a separate item. So in addition to separating the columns between botanical and common, you can also do botanical over common, which keeps it in the same column, but places the botanical name on top of the common name, like this. And so forth. You can swap the common and botanical name, or you can just choose botanical or just choose common. I think you get it. Moving on, we have secondary common names. So if you're working in a different country and you want to use those common names, you can choose, say, Chinese, and place a schedule and have those characters show up as the common name. The remarks are something that you can include or not by checking or unchecking it. If you choose below name, you'll get what we got down here, where the remarks, which is this 12-inch height and spread minimum note, it actually falls underneath the name. But if I choose column, it'll show up in a separate column. Right now it's set to show up at the end, but that is something we can change. Symbols at plan size basically show your plant symbols as they appear in the planting plan. Comparison, let's go over here. So all of these symbols show up at the exact same size as they are in the plan, whereas before, they're all more uniform and not perfectly sized to match what is actually in the planting plan. Below symbols at plan size, we have the cost, which allows you to include the cost of your plants if you've entered in a cost value in the plant data, and subtotals, which is new. So I'm just going to check both those and show you what that looks like. let's run a schedule without symbols and with grid lines, because I think it looks neater when you're doing cost related items. So now you have the unit cost. So that's what each of these plants costs per unit. This Diamond is done in flats, but it's still the cost per plant. You've got a total column here, which adds up the total of or basically it's the quantity times the unit cost. And we also have subtotal down here at the bottom. So the quantity is subtotaled up. So that's this 238 is just all the plants in the shrubs group. And in the total column, it's just all the costs of the shrubs right down here. And then you go down to the bottom and it'll add up the total cost of your planting plan. Moving on down here, we've got space between plants. So everything I've been running so far is set to 0 space. If we set 1 space, you can see what that looks like. So that's basically just adding a space here in the plant name. And you can adjust this. So if you want 5 spaces between your plants, you can do so. And it would look like this.
That one's nice if you want to, write down some notes or something on them. I always, when people asked for that one, I was like, that's a great idea. And it's such a simple option. So that was a fun one to add in. Did you mute yourself, Paul?
Yeah, well, no, I'm just yeah, I was just thinking about showing the sort by. So moving on down the list, we have the sort by dropdown. So the plants are sorted alphabetically, but you can set to whether that's alphabetically by botanical name, common name, or code. So I think only if I use common, it would be different because I think the codes all have the same first letter as the botanical names. So you can do that as well. So if for some reason you want to use the common name as the way to organize it, you'll see that this has now been reordered based on that common name. And probably my favorite of the new features, or at least one of them, is this column order. So if you click on this, it'll pull open this window here. So you've got your photo, symbol, and code, which, as far as we can tell, should always be put together. So they're grouped together, and you've got your names, size, spacing, quantity, cost, total, detail, remarks, and data. And you can reorganize these as you see fit, with the exception being that this top one does have to go first. But let's say I want my detail at the end. I want my remarks right after names, and my totals up front, because I'm a silly person. And click OK, place a schedule. And the columns have been reorganized to my liking. Very neat feature. We can leave it for now. Moving on down, we've got your plant data, which if you click on that, allows you to select different plant data tags to be included in the schedule. I'll show you both, but if you choose the grouped option, I think it's a better look. It'll actually list out the bits of data in columns, and I think it's super readable. So let's say I want to display water use, soil tolerances, sun exposure. Click OK. Click OK. Place a schedule. And those data marks show up right here. So water use for this plant is medium. It's got the soil tolerances nicely listed out and the sun exposure requirements of that plant. And all of this data is coming from our plant specialist who makes sure that it's accurate. And if you want to see what that is, you can go to, edit your plant and click on this data button here. And it'll open up the data behind it and show you what it has been tagged with. So if you want to do the plant data by separate columns, I can show you what that looks like. Right here. Oh. You're going to get a very long column, but it's going to list out all of those different data points in separate columns and simply put an X as a marker to let you know which applies to which plant. Okay, make sure none of those are selected. We can move into plant groups. How are we doing on time? Okay, so you probably saw me already adjusting some of these. I think it's pretty intuitive, but basically the check box, if it's checked, it means that it's going to apply to the schedule. If it's not going to show. So you can choose to run schedules by group. So if I just want to do shrubs, I can do that by just selecting shrubs or shrubs and trees. Just check those two. If I want to include the symbol as well, I can check that. The code, I can uncheck and check. So with these options, this is what it looks like. And let's see what it looks like for the sake of time with everything checked. So one thing to note here is if you're doing area in your shrub areas or ground covers, you're not going to get quantity. It's going to show you the square foot or meters squared or whatever the area is. Tree canopy, select that to get that tree canopy column. And you can add spacing to your shrubs, which will basically just be the width of the actual shrub. That's just assuming that the shrubs are placed touching. So it's the two radiuses together. Anyways, you can choose that as well. Or if you choose density for your areas, it's going to not allow for spacing. So it's one or the other. But this is what it looks like with all of the options checked. Including photo, which I think looks better with no grid lines. So that's what it looks like to run a schedule with just about all the options except for the plant data selected, including photos, which is a nifty new feature. And of course, down here you have, instead of plant symbols, you have a display of the hatch for referencing the plan and all the information that you want to add. So let's move on to constant plant schedules. A little alias is CPS. Here is the new concept plant schedule dialog box. Pretty much the same info as before, but a nicer, more compact dialog box. You once again have the option to send to the drawing or to a spreadsheet. You can display the entire palette, which is everything in your concept plant manager instead of what's in the plan. You can include the title, cost, choose whether you want the symbol or the photo or both or neither one. And you can choose whether or not to display the plants in the group palette and how that's displayed, whether it's showing botanical / common in a single column or botanical or just common. And you can choose to include remarks, size, fill spacing. So that's what that looks like right now. If we compare it to the previous version, should be able to see that it's different. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when I'm placing these schedules, the insertion point has changed, which is a nice feature, I think. So before, when you were placing a schedule, the insertion point would actually be the end of this line. So the plant schedule title would actually be above where you're inserting it, which usually meant you had to move the plant schedule after you placed it. Now the insertion point is the actual upper left-hand corner of the plant schedule. So I'm just going to place a couple of my concept plants, just kind of willy-nilly, and show you what the new concept plant schedule looks like when it's not the entire palette. So I'm going to include quantity and all the information. Click OK, press enter, and there we go. And I believe if you compare this one to the old plant schedule, you should see the compaction a little bit better. Yeah, there we go. So old schedule, a little more spread out, takes up more room. New schedule, a little more compact, a better idea of what the hatch is. Very nice. And this also has the schedule headers, which is this text here, is a separate text style. So I can show that real quick. To change the header text style for the headers, it's the same process as for the schedule title or for the schedule text. You want to go to your general preferences, which is up in FX admin. And you should see a new entry for schedule headers. So if I edit this, I can change my font to maybe I want narrow bold. For headers, click OK. And now you can see a pretty big difference in between the old schedule and the new schedule. And I believe you can now see that in these here. So now I have a new text style for these headers, which is pretty nice. And before I get to question, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot, I'm going to show off the Bloom schedule. So here's what the Bloom schedule dialog looks like. Once again, you can choose to have the grid lines as non-plot or plotted. You can send it to a spreadsheet. You have the option for entire palette. You can include Xrefs. but I just want a basic code of the plant's name and the bloom times. So here's my bloom schedule. One thing to note about this is that there are a lot of flowers out there that are white. So if you're going to be printing this on paper or looking at it like I am on a white background in CAD, you can place a solid hatch behind it of a different color. So I'm just creating a rectangle, and I'm going to use site color, which is the command site color, or you can go to this FX site ribbon and choose site color. And that pulls open our site color tool. And I'm just going to throw a nice light gray on this rectangle. That way I can easily see the time of year where this eastern or red twig dogwood would be blooming with white flowers. When doing this, you may notice that some plants have more than one color. That's because not all flowers are just one color. So we try to show the whole gamut of colors that come with their bloom. And so you might see multiple colors for a single plant. Let's just place another one with some different options. So if I did grid lines non-plot and I included a photo and the symbol, here's what that would look like. So obviously the photos are going to make your rows taller. And so the color preview here is going to be a little wider or taller as well.
Oh, look, it's repeating the photo for the accent colors. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a feature or something
That's a bug.
to look at. Yeah, these are all still in beta. We're still testing, and no errors throughout this whole show. So that's great. We've come a long way in a couple days. But yeah, so I looks like we're gonna have one photo here for that.
Yeah, I don't think attendees appreciate it. It was a long night last night.
So that's bloom schedule. Before we jump into the end here, I'm going to stay in CAD and try to answer questions if there are any.
There are a lot of questions.
Figure there would be.
So not one person though asked what these amazing fonts are that you're using, which so I lose that bet. But Paul has been showing off our new fonts. That is the Adobe Graphite font, which is we just wrapped up a licensing agreement for that, and we'll be distributing the Graphite font family with Land Effects. So if you like that font, it's coming. Yeah, there you are, the whole entire Graphite family. But but I lost the bet. I was like, someone's gonna notice. No one noticed, darn it. Yeah, so many questions. Let's see. A couple people asking about biodiversity, but actually I'm not, when the question is just the word biodiversity, I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. But for the bloom schedule, people want to be able to adjust the bloom times, or if it can be automatically adjusted by your climate zone or something. Very interesting. We'll keep that in mind. As you can see, that's how we've been tagging them, is just by the name of the season. So of course that also works for our Southern Hemisphere people. But this is also obviously new, and this is great feedback. Multiple people have been asking, oh, can I rename the schedule or rename the columns? You can rename any schedule just simply by double clicking on it, because that is the one and only attribute is the title of the schedule. So you can just double click any schedule and rename it. But if you do want to rename the default for the schedule or for any of those column titles, that's all in preferences under language strings. So you are welcome to change plant schedule to plant legend, for instance, if you wish. But you can see those are all the strings used throughout the software. Let's see, let me give you a minute here to look through and find some other questions here. Oh. We did get a great question on, your only options to regenerate or make a new schedule. And someone said it would be neat to be able to edit an existing schedule. And we were actually just, we were just talking about how to do that. And so that was actually, we were working on that literally this week. But of course, obviously it's not in place, but that is now scheduled, yeah, to be able to regenerate, create a new, or edit an existing schedule. So that is on the plan. Oh my gosh, just so many questions. Someone else asked a question on, is it possible to use regular apostrophes instead of backticks? That has been addressed. That was addressed a number of months ago. And so, yes, you can now use apostrophes in a plant name, and they will come in that way. So that's something. Oh my gosh, so many questions. Yeah, I'll see if there's any more. You have any other good thoughts, Paul?
I'm glad someone brought up the schedule title because that was something I meant to show. The schedule title and these various headings and whatnot. If you go into your general preferences into language strings, if you watch what I was doing, I just did that for plant schedule. I changed that to plant list. You just got to find that text that you want to change and put the value in here. And then the next time you run a schedule, it'll have that new title. And then also in preferences, all the schedules that I've run have been in uppercase, but the data for my plants is not all uppercase. And that's because this option was checked, schedules uppercase. So if I uncheck that and run a new schedule, you can get that mixed cap, or yeah, the lowercase and uppercase.
And we got a number of people, a couple of people have said, oh, they'd love a checkbox for native. And there's a couple ways you can do that, depending on how you want it to appear. You can either add that to the plant user fields, 26 plant user fields and preferences, or you can also add it into your plant data fields, wherever you prefer to have that. So you can add that. And of course, Paul, we do have a number of people asking how they can access these this amazing thing. Is it maybe time to show them the secret command?
Yeah.
People want to reset or regen all their schedules.
No, it's no reason to do that. I'll just chug. What you mean as just the Jake? You mean it's just like to see how long it takes or something?
Yeah, that was they wanted to
It'll
see
it'll
all
yeah
of
it'll,
these
all of
schedules.
these.
no, whatever. It'll chug for 30 seconds. Let's just show them
Right.
how they can make them on their own.
Sorry guys, I tried.
Nice try, Jake. Yeah, I have the commands listed on the last slide of the show, so you can read that, but I'll just tell you what they are. For you to access the plant schedule, you just need to type in plant schedule underscore new. And that'll take you to the new schedule dialog box where you can place that. For concept schedules, it's concept schedule, or sorry, concept plant schedule underscore new. And a thing to note, when you do that, it's going to change your user I profile. And what that means is that you will also be getting the new concept plant label, which has been updated so that the label quantities and the concept plant schedule quantities are accurate or consistent with each other. There was just an issue where sometimes the schedule was 1 or 2 plants off, depending on your areas. So that's been fixed. So if you use this new concept plant schedule new command, you'll be getting that new label as well. And it'll be saved into the drawing file if you save it. So any new drawing, as soon as you run that concept plant schedule new command, will also give you that new label style. Or it's not really a new style, but new feature of more accurate counting. Basically, it was a rounding issue, but that's how you get that. And then, of course, the Bloom schedule is the other one, which is fx underscore Bloom schedule. And that'll get you the Bloom schedule. So before we all depart, I just wanted to touch up on a couple of things. So these new plant schedules are still being developed and tested. I guess you can consider them in beta mode right now. So that's why we haven't swapped the buttons for the regular schedules yet. We're still actively testing these things. If you would like to use this new schedule, these new schedule features, and you come across issues or bugs or whatever, please let us know. It'd be a lot better if we learn those things before we officially release it so that we can have that all fixed. There are a couple of things that we have gotten requests for that we're still considering. Column widths and being able to set those has been a big requested item. The thing that we need from you, if you want us to address this, we need examples of basically what you're coming up against that requires this. Right now, we're having a hard time justifying it with what is there. And so if you can send us examples and, really argue the point as why it's super necessary, we can consider it further. Same goes for the quantity of plants to be center justified within the column. That's the quantity column. We've kind of pushed it to the side and we're not going to implement it unless we get feedback from you. And, there's got to be a rationale behind it. And as of right now, we just don't really see the reason for it. But if there is a big, community involvement and a lot of you want it, then we can reconsider that. And another one is when using a lot of user fields, which are those plant sizes, the ability to choose which ones to include or to not include all of them to basically avoid having a super long schedule or wide schedule. But the expected release date, and this is tentative, but it's the end of October. So I just said Halloween. That's when this should come out with all its new features, and you can use the plant schedule button for this new plant schedule.
Ooh, that's scary. But yes, but the update today will include basically what you've seen. There's a couple, like I said, we're going to fix that thing with the photo repeating in the Bloom schedule, and some other things, and then so that the literally the update today will include those commands, and then the official release tentatively scheduled for Halloween, where it'll just simply replace the plant schedule, and then in fact probably on Halloween we'll archive the existing schedules as plant schedule legacy. For about a month or two, just to be safe, right? So that's generally the plan. But wow, I hope everybody had fun. That was pretty great. Great job, Paul. This is I do hope you guys appreciate the monumental amount of work this was. This, like I said, a 2+ year project. So pretty crazy. So hope you enjoyed it. Keep the ideas coming. We had so many questions. There were still some comments we weren't quite able to get to. If there's anything important, of course, reach out to us and we will address those things. and hope to see you at the next webinar. Bye, everybody.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a good weekend.